Breaking tonight, Fox News just confirming a critical new pick for President-elect Trump, with a job offer going to a controversial candidate, one you know very well. Good evening and welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. Topping the list of priorities for the President-elect, building the team that will protect this country at one of the most uncertain times in our history. Just moments ago, Fox News confirming that President-elect Trump has picked former Obama administration military intelligence chief, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, to be his national security advisor. This is a critical post in the national security landscape. It will not be without controversy, but it will be without Senate confirmation, which is not needed for that job. We're going to get more into this in just 1 minute. Among the other candidates who visited Mr. Trump today, legendary foreign policy giant Henry Kissinger, South Carolina governor, and reported candidate for Secretary of State, possibly, Nikki Haley, head of the National Security Agency, Admiral Mike Rogers, and our next guest, retired four-star general and former Vice Chief of Staff of the United States Army, General Jack Keane, who says this country is facing global security challenges on a scale not seen since the rise of the Soviet Union. General Keane in a moment. But we begin tonight with Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry, who is here with me in New York, on the breaking news and the transition. You just broke this, you just confirmed this, so it's a deal.
Lieutenant General Mike Flynn, he's been offered it. He has not officially accepted it, but widely accepted that he will take this post. Why it is significant that he's being appointed to a top White House job is, as you say, he's made very controversial statements about Muslims before. He's taken on President Obama, challenged him on national security. That's why he got forced out. And so Democrats would want a pound of flesh if he was nominated to a post like Defense Secretary or Secretary of State. This allows President-elect Donald Trump to get him installed right into the White House. Kellyanne Conway today pushed back on all these reports, charging that more broadly the transition is moving too slow. She declared while they have a lot of work to do, they're moving methodically and calmly to focus on quality rather than speed. I mentioned Flynn. There's also another surprising move tonight. President-elect Donald Trump inviting Mitt Romney to a meeting this weekend at his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey. The same former Republican nominee that Trump called a choker, and the same Romney who called Trump a phony and a fraud in that searing speech last March. Sources telling us tonight Romney is a potential Secretary of State, a sign Trump may be trying to bring together a team of rivals, as we saw President Obama do with Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Trump's close friend Rudy Giuliani has been a contender for Secretary of State as well, after indications that he was not as interested in Attorney General as outsiders expected. Other options include Senator Jeff Sessions for Attorney General, first lawmaker to stick his neck out and endorse candidate Trump, as well as another surprising pick, a rival again for either Attorney General or a spot on the Supreme Court, Ted Cruz, who now sounds ready to join the team based on what he told Fox and Friends today. Watch.
I have an incredible job right now representing 27 million Texans, and I'm incredibly honored to hold that job, and it's a job I take very, very seriously. I'm eager to work with the new president in whatever capacity I can have the greatest impact.
Now, Senator Sessions also in the running to be Defense Secretary. You mentioned Henry Kissinger. General Keith Kellogg have also passed through Trump Tower. Lieutenant General Michael Flynn as well has been huddling with President-elect Trump. The bottom line is they want to get this national security team in place as quickly as possible, Megyn, because this is, as you say, critical, not just protecting the nation, but we're still at war. And during a transition is when someone like ISIS is going to try to make some sort of a statement. And you want to be on guard for that. And so while they're under great pressure to get this transition moving, national security, top of the list.
Absolutely. Ed, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Adding to the urgency for Mr. Trump to assemble his national security team, today the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, submitted his letter of resignation. He will stay on, however, until President Obama leaves office in January, putting Mr. Trump in the position to choose his successor. Joining us now, General Jack Keane, who is a retired four-star general, former Vice Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army, and Chairman of the Board for the Institute of the Study of War. As we mentioned, he also visited Trump Tower today, and there's some vacancies there, General. So, come on, let's have it. What'd you get offered?
Look at it was his meeting, all right, not mine, and he controls the information. But I'll tell you this. The thing I had in common with Donald Trump is about a dozen years ago, we got a Man of the Year award in New York City, the Hotel Plaza from the USO. So I met him once, and I found him to be very personable. He asked excellent questions, throughout the 45 minutes that I was with him. Very, very engaged and very curious about, the world and its complexities. And, something, let's be honest, that he and many of his close-in advisors that he's selected don't have a lot of knowledge about. It's not surprising. Most people who aspire to be president don't have a foreign policy and national security background. The exception was certainly Hillary Clinton.
You do.
I do.
So, I mean, you tell me, because you are enjoying your retirement and all your many stars, and now, you're working in the Institute of Study of War, which you founded. So, you tell me whether you might have some interest in being the Director of National Intelligence, or even Secretary of Defense, or something like that.
Well, that's between myself and Donald Trump.
That's not a no.
I spoke very frankly to him, and he understands where I'm coming from.
All right, viewers, we are getting someplace with the general. We're getting someplace. I feel like we know, but he just can't say. I want to ask you about the breaking news and Michael Flynn, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. We know him. He's on the Kelly File all the time. Many people are going to lose their minds over this. Just explain why this position is so important. National Security Advisor to the President.
Yeah, it's a really important position, certainly. Just the name itself implies that. There's two jobs there. The one is very visible, the National Security Advisor to the President. And obviously, the President judges whether that person is successful or not, because he or she speaks to that person on a regular basis, just about every single day, multiple times a day.
That person's like the clearinghouse for information from the intelligence agencies, and who else?
From all the interagencies that deal with national security. So the second piece of the position gives you a better sense of it. He's also the director of the National Security Council, which has members on it from the Department of Defense, Department of State, all of our intelligence agencies, the Department of Treasury, etc. And it has its own staff, which now is about 400. Senate Armed Services Committee wants to reduce it. So those are the two jobs.
So he doesn't need to be confirmed in that position. He can just, if Donald Trump wants him, he's got him. But people are already pointing to some controversial statements that General Flynn has said in the past, including, let me pull it out, this one from his Twitter account. This is from April, last April. Fear of Muslims is rational, in all capital letters, rational. Please forward this to others. The truth fears no questions. His language like that, and his General Flynn's somewhat controversial history, especially with the Democrats, going to hurt him at all? Can it?
Well, as I said before, he's advising the President of the United States. That's between the two of them. The President's going to judge whether Flynn is doing a good job or not. The other thing he does, so I could just carry that thought a little further, when the President makes a decision to implement a national security policy, it'll be General Flynn's job to coordinate all of the agencies I mentioned in the execution of that policy. And also,
you feel good about it? Do you feel like General Flynn can do this?
I know him. He's a good guy. This is about the President's confidence in somebody that he knows, somebody he likes, and somebody he trusts. Okay. That's what this is really all about.
We got our eyes on you, General Jack.
I frankly don't think whether we think he's a good guy or not, or a great guy or bad guy, it's not even relevant. This is about the President picking a guy he wants to talk to every single day about national security. That's what's important.
Just telling you. Watching you. I'm going to see you going back into Trump Tower. We're going to see a big announcement. I hope you come right here to Kelly File first after you get it. Great to see you.
Good talking to you, Megyn.
Stuff's happening. Also with us tonight, Katrina Pearson, who's the former Trump campaign national spokesperson, and Matt Bennett, who's co-founder of The Third Way and a former deputy assistant to President Bill Clinton. Great to see you both. So let me just start with you on this, Katrina. It's now being confirmed, or Ed Henry has confirmed General Michael Flynn, and he's already taking the incoming on this. What say you to the people who say he sat in on intelligence briefings while he was advising foreign clients? He made the controversial tweet about how fear of Muslims is rational, not radical Muslims, but just Muslims. Your thoughts?
Well, I won't confirm or deny the appointment simply until the transition team does. I don't want to make that mistake.
Okay.
Simply because we've heard rumors and people for the last 2 days. And, the media can't decide, Megyn, on how to shift gears from trying to defeat Trump to trying to actually cover him by holding him to a completely non-existent standard. And it's really bad when David Axelrod, chief strategist to Barack Obama, took to Twitter today to remind the media that they didn't even have these appointments made at this time without criticism.
No one here here is criticizing him for not making appointments fast enough. I'm talking about General Flynn and whether he's good for this position. I'll give it to you, Matt, on why the Democrats don't seem to like him.
He is a horrendous choice for this job. General Keane was being polite, but being the National Security Advisor is incredibly important. Think about it. Condi Rice was the National Security Advisor on 9/11. You have to coordinate all of the agencies, as the general was discussing. You have to make sure that the president's wishes are carried out by the entire national security establishment, which is gigantic. And most importantly, you have to be an honest broker for the incoming that you're getting from the State Department and the CIA and the intelligence agencies and the Defense Department. He is, by all accounts, a very difficult guy to work for, but also, and much more importantly, he's just not a good person. He's talking about how we should fear all Muslims. That is not the kind of person that you need in the most important positions.
Well, just because he made that one statement, which I've had him on the show many times, and I have heard him speak about radical Muslims for the most part, although this tweet doesn't say that, just for the record. So I don't know that you can leap to he's not a good person, Matt. Go ahead, Katrina.
But if we're being honest here, I mean, whoever Mr. Trump nominates to any position, there's going to be scrutiny. There's been scrutiny over his initial appointments, and so I think to expect that this is just going to be, icing on the cake is just completely unfounded.
Okay, but the criticism, Katrina, is that the people who are going in there that they don't have any experience, and that it just favors he's returning. He's putting people in major positions as just favors because they were loyal to him, as opposed to people, this is the criticism, who know what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah. Megyn,
and the election is over, and the people chose Donald Trump, someone who had never been a politician before, because they trust him to make the right decisions and to choose the right people. And again, this is not just one person that's going to be making these decisions. There are teams that are going to be put in place. Those landing teams are going to be announced soon. Mr. Trump is brilliant when it comes to putting together teams and when it comes to doing what he wants to get done, and I think he's proven that time and time again.
Go ahead, Matt.
Well, look, he's made 3 appointments. One of them I think most Democrats are comfortable with, which is his chief of staff, Reince Priebus. But the other one, Steve Bannon, as you well know, Megyn, is unbelievably controversial because he, again, is somebody who is just so far outside the mainstream. If George W. Bush had had a meeting in the Oval Office with Steve Bannon, it would have been news because it would have been a scandal. Now he's going to have an office next to the Oval Office, and I think there's going to be same kind of questions raised about General Flynn. Maybe
but
not quite as extreme.
as Katrina pointed out, Steve Bannon was running Trump's campaign, and the people elected him, Matt. So,
no doubt.
Is there really any objection to Trump using him as he wants, President-elect Trump?
No, we can't stop it. He can appoint who he wants, and he will. But we can object to it because this is not the kind of guy that you want in the halls of power. You want somebody much more reasonable and much more mainstream than guys like Steve Bannon.
I think your objection may be overruled.
Well, I mean, there's a laundry list of controversial people surrounding Barack Obama as well. We don't talk about that.
Also breaking tonight, new reports that Nancy Pelosi could be caught in the crossfire as the Democrats get ready to punish someone for the epic losses last week. Will it be Ms. Pelosi? Plus, a fierce fight breaking out today over the idea of tracking immigrants who come here from terror hotbeds. We'll show you what the law says about this, and then we'll pick up the political fight with Hassan Shilby from the Council on American Islamic Relations and former Navy SEAL Carl Higbee. They're next. Don't go away.
Look, the president needs to protect America first, and if that means having people that are not protected under our Constitution have some sort of registry so we can understand, until we can identify the true threat and where it's coming from, I support it.
Tonight, growing fallout over reports that the president-elect's team may be considering some kind of registry for folks who are coming to the United States from areas that are hotbeds for terrorism. While critics are hitting the plan as anti-American, some constitutional experts say it's not only legal, but several administrations have used practices like this. Trace Gallagher explains how this might work. Trace?
Megyn, when it comes to implementing Donald Trump's call for extreme vetting of immigrants from some Muslim countries, Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach, a member of the Trump transition team, says the answer might be reinstating the National Security Exit and Entry Program system known as NSEERS, which required people from primarily Muslim countries deemed as a higher risk to be interrogated and fingerprinted. The program started after 9/11 and ended in 2011 when the Department of Homeland Security decided
it, it was redundant. It was also criticized for unfairly targeting Muslims. And Chris Kobach, who helped design the program, acknowledges NSEERS didn't result in any terror charges, but says it was a great tool for fighting terror because law enforcement could identify potential terrorists who did register and arrest those who didn't. And even those who oppose NSEERS say it would be easy to reinstate because technically it's still on the books. Former Policy Director for Homeland Security Teresa Brown told BuzzFeed the program is inactive because the 25 high-risk countries were taken off the list. But if the president issues a new order and if the Homeland Security Secretary issues a new list of countries, the program could be easily reactivated. Whether it passes constitutional muster is a different question. Experts say there is no comparison to the internment of the Japanese during World War II because those were American citizens. And now the Trump team says they would not be registering just Muslims, but rather those who come primarily from Muslim countries, a distinct legal distinction.
Okay, Trace, thank you. Our next guest is among the legal experts suggesting that a program like this, like that post 9/11 registry, would likely pass constitutional muster before a judge, in part because it already has. J. Christian Adams is a former DOJ attorney. Great to see you, Chris. So describe what exactly you think would be legal.
Foreigners do not have a constitutional right to enter the United States, Megyn. Even Americans, they don't enjoy the Fourth Amendment rights against search and seizure when they're at the border. So the Constitution doesn't apply normally at the border. All you have to do is say these hotbeds of terror have to be subject to additional screening. This is a reasonable request. It's something I think most Americans would agree with. If you come to this country and want in from these hotbeds of terrorism, you're going to be subjected to additional screening. It's neither Muslim nor a registry. It's where terror is.
How far could they go with that? I mean, could they say, we need your address, we need your cell phone, we need your fingerprints, you need to check in with us every 3 days? And if you don't, you're out.
Absolutely. It's totally constitutional. And it was in place, something similar to that, up until 2011, which naturally the Obama administration quit doing. You could say you have to check in with INS every week. Remember, the 9/11 terrorists, Megyn, overstayed their visa. A tool like this would have been effective to help stop 9/11.
So the concern is that what if we wanted to go beyond that? What if we wanted to do something like corral them and keep them in a certain area? I mean, they do have constitutional rights once they get on U.S. soil and get past the border.
That's right, and nobody is suggesting that. Nobody's suggesting that's part of this attack on the Trump transition is they're making things up that aren't actually being suggested. You cannot corral people based on the religion, and nobody's suggesting it. But you can impose entry requirements that will protect this country by asking them about their views of certain issues. Or do they think it's legitimate to wage jihad against the West?
Can Donald Trump just do that with a stroke of a pen, or does he have to, get that passed through Congress?
He can do it with a stroke of a pen, and I suggest he probably is going to do it because that's why he was elected, to try to keep America safer than we've seen over the last couple of years in places like Paris, where you can see what happens if you don't protect the country.
The president has a lot of power in dealing with the border to protect the nation. Christian Adams, great to see you.
Thanks, Megyn.
Well, this debate over this has been on fire in the media today, and we're picking it up there with Carl Higbie, a former Navy SEAL and Trump supporter, and Hassan Shilby, the chief executive director of the Florida branch of the Council on American Islamic Relations, known as CARE. Great to see you both.
Thank you.
So, Carl, we had this debate on the show last night.
Right.
You just want to make clear that we got into this back and forth about, whether there was legal precedent for doing this,
right,
with checking at the border. And you made a reference to the Japanese in World War II, and your position tonight is that was not a reference to internment camps.
Oh, no,
is that right?
absolutely. Quite frankly, I was actually shocked that you brought in internment camps, but it was a reference strictly to the scrutiny on immigration and the stopping of immigration and the registration of immigrants coming from places like Japan and Italy and Germany and things like that. So no, it had nothing to do with internment camps whatsoever.
Okay, but you didn't say that you were shocked. Here is what happened between us last night when we were talking about this proposal by Chris Kobach to check out Muslims at the border. Listen. They're discussing drafting a proposal to reinstate a registry for immigrants from Muslim countries.
Yeah, and be perfectly honest, it is legal. They say it'll hold constitutional muster. I know the ACLU is going to challenge it, but I think it'll pass. And we've done it with Iran back a while ago. We did it during World War II with Japanese, which, call it what you will. Maybe
you're not proposing we go back to the days of internment camps, I hope.
No. I'm not proposing that at all, Megyn. But what I am saying is that
you know better than to suggest that. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that gets people scared, Carl.
Right. But I'm just saying there is precedent for it, and I'm not saying I agree with it.
Right. So, I mean, there wasn't shock expressed. There was saying, hey, there's precedent for it, which is what got people, confused. But I take you at your word if you're saying you were referencing something else. You were trying to make a different point.
It was referenced in parallel with Iran when we, under Jimmy Carter, we banned immigration from Iran. So I assume that, forgive me for not being as clear as I possibly could, but I never...
Because you mentioned the Japanese in World War II.
Yeah, no, I did, but I did not ever mention internment camps. So, for those out there who thought it was...
I know, but that's kind of the big story about what we did here to the Japanese.
You put words out there, Megyn, and let's be honest, the media had
only after you put out the words about what we did to the Japanese in World War II, which is okay, I remember that.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, I think the left-wing media took this by the horns because they're not a fan of Donald Trump, but this is exactly why he run, because of the dishonest media. Not saying you.
Okay, well, listen, I understand you're clarifying it. Got it. Hassan, let me bring you in on what Carl is actually saying tonight, which is he supports this proposal. You just heard our lawyer saying it would be upheld in a court of law to say Muslims coming into the country from countries where terror originates or where there's a terror problem, that they could be forced to submit to this kind of monitoring. Your thoughts?
Thank you, Megyn. And to Carl, I say, have you no sense of decency, sir? I mean, America is a country based on freedom of religion. Freedom of religion is a fundamental principle that I have taken an oath, and I'm sure you've taken an oath to protect. And it is ineffective to target people simply based on religion. Let's target criminals, let's target terrorists, but let's not divide people simply based on their religion. And my children hear you. After Donald Trump won, my children came home, they're ages 4, 5, and 6. And we don't talk about politics at home, but they said, Daddy, Trump won, and now he's going to kick us out, and he's going to build a wall so big we can't even fly back home. And I told them, kids, don't worry, you're all born here. This is your land, and I'll protect your freedom to practice your faith in this land, as we will protect the freedom of all Americans to practice their faiths in this land.
He's not talking about Americans, though, Hassan. Yeah. He's not talking about Americans. He's talking about foreigners who want to come into America and the kind of screening that we should do when we're in a war on terror.
Well, I think anybody coming into America should face scrutiny and screening to make sure that people who are coming into America are law-abiding.
You don't think there should be any heightened scrutiny for those who come from hotbeds of terror?
I don't think there should be heightened scrutiny based on people's religion. Again, that's not what America's about. You have the IRA committing terrorism.
Is that based on religion, or is it based on a geographical, a geopolitical war?
We've heard many different things. We've heard many different things from Trump supporters and Trump surrogates, and some have advocated. I mean, this gentleman here himself has said some very negative things about the entire Muslim community. We can't be promoting fear and hate against an entire religious community. Let's target on actual threats, but let's not divide Americans based on religion, because what makes America so great is freedom of religion. That's what the U.S. Constitution is about.
Go ahead, Carl.
Well, Hassan, forgive me for not taking you too seriously about American security and safety, which is the paramount of Donald Trump's policies here. Your organization, CARE, was listed as a terrorist organization by the UAE. 7 of your board members can't come into the United States because they have alleged terrorist ties, and you supported Hamas. So let's be very clear here. Donald Trump wants to protect Americans first and scrutinize people who want to join our country, and make sure when they do join our country, they do it on our terms, which is safe for Americans, but we also want to be fair to the people who are already here. So I welcome immigrants, I welcome people from all over the country, or all over the world, to join us here, but I want to make sure that it's safe for Americans in my country that I fought for.
Go ahead, Hassan.
And that's absolutely false. I'm a civil rights lawyer. I run the largest civil rights organization in the state of Florida. We defend the rights of all people of discrimination, regardless of race or religion or ethnicity.
The UAE has designated CARE as a terrorist organization.
The UAE did designate CARE, not CARE Florida, and we don't go by the UAE. We live in a democratic country. The UAE does not have democratic freedoms or liberties, and the reason they did is because CARE is a civil rights organization. Yes, a dictatorship. Are you under UAE laws, or do we believe in American laws? I go by the American system. Only a couple months ago, I met with the president. Our deputy director is a sheriff deputy, and he protects this country day and night. We keep our country safe. We're proud Americans, and we want to keep America a free and just nation for all people, regardless of their race or religion, and we will stand for all victims of discrimination. Let's stand united. Let's not let fear and hate divide us and turn us against each other.
Carl, I'll give you the quick last word, and I got to go.
I just want to say thank you, Megyn. I think the American people understand where we stand on our differences on this one, so thank you.
Great to see you both. Also tonight, we're doing a new investigation into fake news reports and whether they changed people's votes. Plus, Nancy Pelosi may lose her 14-year grip on power as a result of the pounding the Democrats took last week. Mark Thiessen and Austin Goolsbee are here on what that means for the country.
Well, let me just say that, as I said, without even asking anybody for a vote, I have over 2/3 of the caucus supporting me.
Maybe. Breaking tonight, a young Democrat from the blue-collar town of Youngstown, Ohio, has stepped up to challenge Nancy Pelosi and possibly break her 14-year grip on power. That news comes as President Obama faces roughly 2 months in office left and a legacy under, possibly going under from the president-elect. The Clintons appear to be leaving the political stage meantime after being a powerful force in Washington for over 30 years. Senator Harry Reid is retiring after 3 decades in office. And Nancy Pelosi could do nothing but watch as her caucus decided this week to delay leadership elections while they figure out what went wrong on Election Day. Joining me now, Fox News contributor and former chief speechwriter to President George W. Bush, Mark Thiessen, and President Obama's former chief economist and economics professor at Chicago's Booth School of Business, Austin Goolsbee. Great to see you both.
Good to see you, Megyn.
So, Mark Thiessen, put this in perspective for us about the state of the Democrats and the Democratic Party right now.
Well, the Democrats have called off their elections until they can figure out what the hell is going on. It sounds like right now. And look, the state of the Democratic Party is pretty bad. A few weeks ago, the Democrats were preparing to measure the drapes in the White House and watch the Republican Party infight over how they had such a devastating loss to Hillary Clinton. Now it's the Republicans that are measuring the drapes and the Democrats that are infighting. And they have a lot to fight about. As Congressman Ryan has correctly pointed out, they've had the smallest congressional minority since 1929. Donald Trump has been elected president of the United States. They've lost 60 seats in Congress since 2010, and that's the Republican wave at the national level. At the state level, the Democratic Party has lost 242 state legislative seats since Barack Obama took office, lost control of 30 state legislative chambers, and a dozen governorships. When Barack Obama took office, Republicans had control of about 8 state legislatures where they had both the governor and the state legislator. Today, it's half the country, and Democrats control 6. So the Democratic Party we've been focusing on the national elections. At the state level, they have been completely wiped out. The wave is in the national level. There's a tsunami at the state level.
Pretty compelling argument there, Austin. What's the counter?
Yeah, look, several of those things I don't disagree with. I agree. Donald Trump wins a very narrow presidential victory, but I think Mark is right. That completely turned the tables. Now it's the Democrats fighting with each other, trying to figure out, why did this happen and whose fault was it and where should they move. The only thing I would observe at the state level is a lot of what you've seen at the state level is true at the House of Representatives too, which was 2010 was a big year for Republicans. And because 2010 is the census year, you had a massive amount of redistricting in those states. And that has absolutely redounded into the House of Representatives and into the state legislatures. Mm-hmm. You've seen the Senate remain much more balanced because there's no redistricting.
What do you make? I mean, obviously the Democratic Party has some soul searching to do. You tell me. They don't seem like they fully understand why or how they lost. And who are they going to listen to for the prognosis on that? I mean, for the diagnosis, what I guess the postmortem I'm looking for. Both parties we have seen can overreact to very narrow election victories by the other side. You've seen that happen multiple times over the last 20 years. You think Nancy Pelosi is going to get the boot?
Well, see, that's what I was going to say. With that said, it's clear with the Clintons, with Pelosi, we've got a generation of leadership that sometime in the near future is going to shift to the next generation. I don't know that it's right now. Nancy Pelosi's pretty strong and pretty effective. I don't know that this one congressman from Ohio will be the challenge, but I do think, the winds are blowing. The winds of change are definitely blowing.
Yeah. Mark, basically the Republicans took over the Congress in 2010, Austin's saying, and rejiggered the lines such as, in a way to help the Republicans.
Yeah, if it was that easy, then they wouldn't have any problems, because then they just have to wait for the next redistricting. Look, the reality is, I hope they keep Nancy Pelosi in power, because if you have the same leadership, you have the same results. The reality is that the reason the Democrats have been wiped out is because they have lost the white working class vote in states like Ohio, states like Pennsylvania, states like Wisconsin.
And why is that?
And because they've lost, first of all, because they have utter contempt for those people. These are the people that Barack Obama said are bitter people who cling to guns, that Hillary Clinton called the deplorables. They're not going to win those people back with a San Francisco liberal. Tim Ryan is from Youngstown, from that part of the world. He knows how to bring the Democratic Party back, but I hope they don't listen to him.
Quickly, Austin, go ahead.
Mark's kind of firing the most inflammatory things that he can fire. I mean, Barack Obama's popularity rating is above Ronald Reagan's at this point in his presidency. And Donald Trump just lost the popular vote by more than 1 million.
But he won the Electoral College.
He's very popular in California, a very narrow victory.
All right. Narrow victory. Let that be your warm blanket as you go to sleep to President Trump. Great to see you both. 9 days after Donald Trump's victory, and some of Hollywood's most ardent liberals are still having trouble coming to terms with the results. We'll show you what actress Lena Dunham is now doing in her struggle to cope with the results. Plus, have you heard of fake news? Did you hear about this on Facebook? Did it really change how people voted? Our investigation is next.
There's so much active misinformation, and it's packaged very well, and it looks the same when you see it on a Facebook page or you turn on your television.
Megyn Kelly.
Developing tonight, a brand new analysis from BuzzFeed News has found that in the months leading up to the U.S. election, bogus election news stories generated more engagement on Facebook than top real stories. Now, some on the left are claiming that fake news contributed to the outcome of the race, and President Obama is warning about living in an age of misinformation.
There's so much active misinformation, and it's packaged very well, and it looks the same when you see it on a Facebook page or you turn on your television. If everything seems to be the same and no distinctions are made, then we won't know what to protect.
Joining us now, Chris Steyerwalt, our Fox News digital politics editor, and Dana Lash, host of Dana on the Blaze TV and author of Hands Off My Gun, Defeating the Plot to Disarm America. Great to see you both.
Thanks for having us.
Fake news, it's apparently a real thing, though I don't know that it was a real cause of Hillary's defeat. Let's just start with, apparently the fake stories, the biggest ones, include that Mrs. Clinton sold weapons to ISIS.
Whoa.
That the Pope endorsed Donald Trump, that Ireland was accepting American refugees fleeing Donald Trump, and that RuPaul, the drag queen, said he was groped by Trump.
Well, that RuPaul story, I tell you what, right there, that probably moved a lot of needles. No, but there was some story.
Don't say that.
There was some story where... No, seriously, let's be... Okay, there was some story where it was Media Research Center, and they discovered that about 8% of voters, they determined that maybe if what they had believed was being said about Hillary Clinton that they saw in the news, maybe if they would have believed it, it would have had an impact on the way that they voted. But nobody trusts the media. 78% of voters don't trust the media. That's an MRC poll from last week. So I don't really think, and those are so outlandish too. The RuPaul, that's my favorite. I haven't heard that one until tonight.
That's the last straw. Steyerwalt, fake news, I guess, could be potentially a problem.
Yeah.
What seemed to be the bigger issue in this election was real news that was completely ignored by a lot of people for one reason or another.
Well, look.
On both sides.
The sustained attack on the press. So we earned it in a large part. The broken faith with the American people by dishonest reporting, heavily biased reporting, passing itself off as objective journalism. Decades of mistakes brought...
Some of which was revealed in the WikiLeaks.
Some was revealed in the WikiLeaks, and others just revealed by turning on the television for some channels and going, oh, I see how it is. So all of these decades of misconduct laid open the door in 2016 that you had both campaigns, particularly Donald Trump, waging war against the press. Hillary Clinton says, it's because of the coverage of my emails that I'm in trouble. It's like, actually, it's because of the emails that you're in trouble.
Right.
And then Donald Trump, of course, with a all-out Anzio beachhead attack on the press. CNN sucks. CNN sucks.
Disgusting, I think, was his favorite.
Rage and hate against the press. So he ran against the press, and Clinton did to a degree too.
Yeah, he skull stomped the press. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. I mean, we have to use it's colorful language, but that's exactly what happened. But the thing is, he did to the American media what so many voters have wanted to see happen for the longest time. I mean, think about this. Back in 2010, even before that, back in 2008, if you didn't vote for Barack Obama, then maybe you have some racist tendencies. That's how this started. And then in 2010, right before the Unaffordable Health Care Act was passed, there was the whole story of congressional members that were spit on by Tea Party demonstrators in Washington, D.C. There was zero proof of this. Right. It was a made-up story. Nothing was confirmed. And it kept going and going and going, and the stories got more and more outrageous. This wasn't a left-leaning website. It wasn't a right-leaning website that was doing this. This was major network news that was doing this. I remember there were reports of Tea Party activists that were carrying firearms, but they were cropping people out so you couldn't tell that it was a black American voter who was carrying a firearm lawfully. I mean, that's the kind of stuff they did. So people were.
But now it's like it's almost like you just want to do over. Let's just start the media over again. You know, it's just gotten so clammed up with bad information and bad actors, in some cases, in the eyes of the viewers in particular.
Social media is great because it connects people in ways that they haven't been before. The success of Donald Trump is a reflection not just of his ability to share information or misinformation, but it is reflective of the ability to create a network and an organization of people that transcend normal networks. Great, that's really good. But there is something that we have to pay attention to, which is if we can't be sure that we're telling people the truth and there aren't trusted sources, we won't keep the republic.
Well, I would say no matter, we've taken a lot of bumps and bruises, we the press, and many of them have been deserved.
Some have been better than others.
It's still a noble profession.
We got a job.
We are looking out for them. We are trying. There are a lot of great journalists who give up a lot and who work very hard, usually for very little money, to bring you the best information they can. Great to see you both.
Thank you, Megan.
So Lena Dunham, Tom Hanks, and Brian Kilmeade. Only one of them is here. Next. Winners in the 2016 election, Donald Trump and the therapists working in and around the Hollywood area. It seems some of the best-known names from the entertainment industry are having an especially hard time with the results. Here to discuss it is the co-host of Fox & Friends, Brian Kilmeade, and listen to this. If you are in Dayton, Ohio tomorrow night, you can catch Brian at a signing for his book, Thomas Jefferson and the Tripoli Pirates, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at Books & Co., Dayton, Ohio. Kilmeade will be there.
And
it's exciting.
I will not be crying. Lena Dunham, evidently the story goes, she's at the Javits Center waiting for Hillary Clinton to show up so they can have the party of a lifetime.
Oh, boy.
Then when she realizes Florida's going the other direction, she reaches to her face to find tears there. She was crying. A little bit later, she found hives on her chin.
Oh.
She found somebody else who also had hives on her chin.
Oh,
it was clear Hillary Clinton was going to lose. The only thing she could do was join her boyfriend at home and take a shower.
You know what?
And she did.
Can I tell you for the record, my one of our producers, Emily Jeffers, she also breaks out into hives when she gets upset.
Really?
Yes. Well, not in this particular instance, but I've seen that happen. That can happen.
Is she upset now?
No,
Can we bring her out?
I think she's feeling pretty good.
All right. Okay, good. I don't know. I've never had that type of reaction, allergic reaction. Sometimes if I scratch a dirty cat, my eyes will puff up.
Well, but the truth is, this is very upsetting to a lot of Americans.
Kidding.
The same way as when Barack Obama won 2 times in a row, it was very upsetting to some on the other side.
But when rich, famous people get upset, they do interesting things that blue-collar people can't do.
Like what?
They go to Aspen, Colorado, where they just go and climb rocks.
Is that where Lena Dunham is?
That's exactly what she did.
Aspen? I thought she was in Arizona.
Same
Arizona. Same thing.
Yeah, same thing. She went to a place with rocks. Yeah, Sedona. So don't look for her. She's out now. And then she decides.
So don't look for her. Nice.
Yeah, don't look for her. But she's back, and she says she realized she's going to fight the good fight.
How about Tom Hanks? He's taking a different route.
Typical classy Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks got another award on Wednesday, so finally he's getting recognized. And so he gets a trophy because there's nothing in that trophy case. I'm so embarrassed for him. He was really good at, Growing Pains, Bosom Buddies. He was fantastic
Would
at
you
Bosom
get to
Buddies.
the point?
All right, so he's making a speech, at which time he says, listen, I was voting for somebody else, but to paraphrase, he said, it's time for us as Americans. We're not Republican or Democrat, we're Americans. And my hope is that Donald Trump does so well, I vote for his re-election in 4 years. Yeah. And that is the attitude that most people have. When Barack Obama won and Mitt Romney lost, you're an American. Same thing with George Bush and Al Gore, you're an American.
Although I have to say, I will never get over the fact when Barack Obama was elected and inaugurated in 2008, and I went to his inauguration in 2009, there were people in that crowd who booed George W. Bush and Laura Bush and George H.W. Bush and Barbara Bush. How do you boo Barbara Bush? Explain that to me. I don't understand. But listen, so healing is good. You helped produce a healing moment as well that people don't know. It's in my book, Settle for More, which you can buy right now. It's on stands. And it helped Donald Trump and I get over the weirdness that went on between us. And people don't know that Brian is like Henry Kissinger.
Right.
I had reached out to Donald Trump to meet with me, to like sit down with me so we could just stop that. And he didn't want to see me. And then enter Brian Kissinger and tell him what happened. It's in the book.
Well,
but
it just struck me because he made up with Mitt Romney too today, and it was something just as the same type thing. As bad as he gets, he also fundamentally he does want to get over things. My sense is I went to interview him, and we got in a fight earlier that day because of you, because he was going after you. So, long story short, I had a chance to talk to him. At which time I said, "Listen, if I talk to Megyn and Megyn wants to talk to you, can we get this thing done? You wanted to get it done." So he said, "Go ahead, text my office." Hope Hicks calls me back. Sure enough, let's do it Sunday. Can't do it Sunday. Can Melania come? Can't come. Next thing you know, he met you, and now you're friends. And it's very similar to the same pattern we're seeing with Mitt Romney and Ted Cruz.
You did a great job, and you really helped us both out. Great to see you.
Right,
we'll be right back.